This is Gemara and Beitzah Daf Chavav. We'll learn if this month, the month of Tishrei, has been generously sponsored as a chos for Shlema Ben Yuta Mir Tasham. He should have a continued recovery, as well as Olar Chayle Memani Bevega Shmuel Yosef Ben Yefrei Chaim and Sojam Zim Reiza Sar Bas Kenendel Ida Basim Bas Chaysai Yisrael Mendel Depend of Shavlei Shalom Mas Noami Bashafigo Shirchana Shmuel Ben Tilo Neil Mechaim Yiza Milchaim Ben Sinali Brachas of Musa Dinina Bachamina Sviu Fegura Nechayla Nesava Nasel Huva Besoy Shar Chali Yisrael as well as Shidduch Vushan the Miri Esther Bas Shoshana Malka Leo Mordechai Ben Dabashendel Tergitol Bas Dabashendel, as well as Yisrael Chaim Ben Dvair and Shir Miriam Bas Rezo Gittel. We are holding on the very, very bottom of Chaf Hayam and Beis as we begin a new Mishnah, continuing the different halachas, food preparations, but not just food preparations. We went into trapping, we went into shchita, all the different preparations, what is allowed and what is not allowed on Yantif. Says the Mishnah, Bachar Shenafal Labar, a Bachar, a firstborn animal that falls into a pit. And what we need to know is, a firstborn animal is a kada, you should ask kedusha to it, it has to be brought as a carbon. If it gets a mum kavua, which is a mum, that a tamachacham, a mumcha, the expert comes and says, this is a permanent mum, then the kohen is allowed to eat it. Even nowadays this applies. So it says the Mishnah, you have a bachar, you have this firstborn animal, which of course has kedusha, and now if it gets a mum, the kohen can eat it. If it doesn't have a mum, it's a carbon. What happens to this animal? Shenafa lebar, it falls into a pit on Yantif. What's the status of this animal? So of course there's two things really coinciding in the Mishnah. There's number one, we have to know if it has a mum, and number two, it fell into a pit. Rav Yehuda Imer Yered, says Rav Yehuda, and one second, apologies. Says Rav Yehuda, Yered mumcha v'yera. The mumcha should go down and see. The mumcha should go down and see what the status of this animal. Again, like we said, what's going on over here is that you have an animal, you have a bachar. Is the kohen allowed to eat it? No. Why not? It has kedusha, has to be brought as a carbon. Once it has a mum, what's going to be the status? Then the kohen will yes be allowed to eat it. So now we have a similar application to like we're discussing. Could the kohen shech this animal on Yantif? Is it muksa? Is it not? Was it designated? Was it prepared? Is it set aside for Yantif usage? Is it something that when Yantif began it had a usage or not? That is the discussion over here. So it says Rav Yehuda, mumcha, the expert could go down and determine whether it has a mum. Im yesh mum, if it has a mum, then yalla, then you could bring up the animal v'yishchait and you could shecht it because now it's allowed to be in. V'im lav lo yishchait. But if not, if it doesn't have a mum, you can't shecht it. Rav Shimon Aimer kol shein mumay nikar mibayayim. Comes along Rav Shimon, which perhaps is a bit more what one would expect. If not before Yantif, you knew that it had a mum, then it's Eino Mina Muchan. It's not prepared. I don't care right now that it fell into a pit and its ear fell off, it's lost a leg, and now theoretically you could shecht it and eat it. Absolutely not. When Yantif began, this animal was not prepared. You cannot use it on Yantif, says Rav Shimon, which of course Rav Yehuda and the Mishnah disagreed. And now the Gemara is going to discuss what exactly is the root, what is the crux of this machlokes between Rav Yehuda and Rav Shimon. Says the Gemara, what's the debate between Rav Yehuda and Rav Shimon? Are you telling me it's a simple machlokes whether on Yantif we allow an expert to go and check out a mum? Is that their debate? A very localized, perhaps not even so local, a very general halacha, whether a mumche goes and sees mumin on Yantif. Says the Gemara, if that was the case, so the Mishnah should have said, what should the Mishnah have said? Can you go and check out a mum on Yantif? Why does the Mishnah have to say, says the Gemara, Excuse me, that's the answer. Says the Gemara, why did the Mishnah have to say a case of an animal falling into a pit? That's irrelevant. It's a very simple halacha. Can an expert go and see if there's a mum? You don't have to have a whole theatrical case of an animal falling into a pit. You could have an animal that's sitting in your backyard, and the question is, does it have a mum or not? So call over the expert on Yantif. Rav Shimon will tell you no, and Rav Yehuda will tell you yes. Why did the Mishnah have to say a case of an animal falling into a pit to bring out this point if The machlokes was very simple, whether a mumcha is allowed to look at an animal or not in Yantif. Answers the Gemara, you know why we needed to discuss a case of an animal falling into a pit is to teach us a massive chiddush. I would have thought, 1 second, the animal fell into the pit. It's in pain. It's writhing in pain. So you would have thought, Yeshua. You would think, you know what you would do? Pull shtick. The animal is sitting there. Does it have a mum? I don't know. But the animal is in pain because it's stuck in a pit. So you would think you're allowed to la'arim, you're allowed to be conniving, la'askein, you're allowed to bring up the animal on the potential that it has a mum. Why are you allowed to do that? Rav Yeshua. Rav Yeshua says a similar case that when two animals, as Rashi over here points out, two animals, you're not allowed to shech both of them on the same day. Why not? You're not allowed to shech an animal and its son on the same day, and they're both in a pit. But they're sitting in pain. Says Rav Yeshua, you bring up the first animal, and you say, I want to shech this for Yantif. Then you say, wait, maybe the other animal is better. So you bring up the other animal. Of course, you're not going to shech both of them. But Rav Yeshua allows you to do this shtick, this rama, in order to save the animal from the sar b'alechayim. Of course, there's an element, perhaps sar b'alechayim might even be a daraisa. So says the Gemara, you would think that our Mishnah would be teaching us if an animal falls into a pit, you're allowed to similarly bring it up, irrelevant if it has a mum. Kamash Malan. On that, our Mishnah teaches us no. Rav Yehuda says no. The only way you're allowed to remove it if it has a mum. Send the expert out. Does it have a mum? You can bring it up. If not. And Rav Shimon says, regardless, you cannot bring it up. Says the Gemara, so 1 second. You're telling me the Havamina was, you can bring it up either way. The Chiddush is, no, Yachi, that's the case. Lo Yishchait, Lo Yalav Yishchami Bailei. Then the whole Chiddush of our Mishnah is not just Lo Yishchait. It's not just localized whether you can shecht it. It's a Chiddush about bringing up the animal. So the Mishnah should have said, Lo yale v'yishchami ba'ilei. It should have said he cannot bring it up and shecht it. Answers the Gemara, another chiddush. So you see how much is implied between the words, between the lines in the Mishnah. Like Tzricha says the Gemara, you know what the Mishnah is referring to? You didn't listen. You didn't ask a shayla. Sometimes, people first act and then ask. You acted. You pulled up the animal. Then you said, wait, was I allowed to do that? Once you did it, the animal's here. You would think, okay, we'll let you shecht it. Kamash Malan. The chiddush is no. We don't let you shecht it. Rav Yehuda says if it has a mum, yes. And Rav Shimon says no. Says Mar, 1 second. L'shachtei. You're telling me there was a havamina that you're going to shecht it even, what? Even without a mum? Hadamu. It's an animal with no mum. It's a bukhar. A bukhar without a mum you can't shecht. We all know that. It's nothing to do with anything. Just a bukhar without a mum. Light Tzricha answers the Gemara, it had a mum now. Says the Gemara, 1 second. Who cares if it has a mum right now? It was muksa originally. It had a mum, a passing mum, a quasi mum when Yontif began Me'erev Yontif. Now it has a real mum. I would have thought that you would have thought that Lamaisa, since it has a quasi mum, so your das was on it. You were thinking, okay, maybe I could eat it. Kamash Mulan, no. Kamash Mulan, Rav Yehuda says if it has a good mum, yes. And Rav Shimon says not. So we see that the Mishnah at the end of the day is discussing a bit of a deeper case than it seems. It's telling us a chiddush that you can't do harama, you can't just bring it up either way like Rav Yeshua. It's teaching us a case that had a quasi mum, now it has a full mum. That's the machlekes between Rav Yehuda and Rav Shimon. Says the Gemara, what is the story? A similar case. Tanu Rabbanan, 2 dots, 5 lines from the bottom. Chavavam and Halef. Bachar tam shenafel abar. We have a bachar without a mum. You know it has no mum. It falls into a pit. Rav Yehuda anasi omer yirin mum chaviyira. You send the mumcha down to check it out. Im yesh by mum. If it has a mum, ya'ala bring it up. Yishchot shecht. Ve'il nav lo yishchot. Amar le Shimon ben Asya. Shimon ben Asya is not happy. Hari amru ein roin mum im yantif. What are you doing? We know you don't check out mum in yantif. So how are you sending down an expert? Ketzad, what's going on? No ilabay mum erev yantif. If a mum developed before Yantif, ain't Mivakana say Yantif, then we don't check it out in Yantif. No, that my mom be Yantif, but let's say it was born a mum on Yantif itself, then Rav Shimon Aimer ain't Zem in a Mucha, and it wasn't prepared, he can't do anything. Rishavim, but everyone agrees. Let's say an animal's born. An animal wasn't alive before Yantif, and it's born on Yantif itself, and it's born with a mum. Says the Gemara, a bit of a chiddush perhaps. Shezem min amuchan. That's called prepared, because it never had. And the Rashi here explains Rashi doesn't explain. Yes, Rashi does explain. We're in a bit of a double Rashi situation over here. Rashi over here explains. Let's find the Rashi. Rashi explains on the right side of the page. Rashi says the reason is because it never had the first narrow line. Cheskas Isser Me'olam. It never was forbidden, and that's the reason why it's going to be allowed. A unique case, it was born with the mum, never at a moment that it was forbidden. That's the reason why you're going to be allowed to eat it on Yontif proper. Says the Gemara. Let's go into this case a bit deeper. This case of an animal being born on Yontif with a mum. 3 lines on the top, Chavav and base. If it and its mum is born on Yontif, you check it out on Yontif. Says Rav Nachman Abba. Tani, teach as follows. Im avaru bikra mebukar. Tell me, if you did it, it's okay. What's going on? Why are you telling me that you're allowed to do lechatchila? We know if you did it, it's okay, but you're not allowed to do lechatchila. Amar Abaye says Rabbi, no. Rabbi Ravuna mistavra. I'm going with Rabbi Ravuna, which means what? Which means that I'm holding you allowed to even check it out lechatchila. If you know the animal is born with a mum, you're allowed to go check it out. How do I know? From the fact that we learned 3 different cases. Number 1, Noilad by Mum Erev Yontif. These are the 3 cases on the bottom of Amud Aleph. That if the mum was on Erev Yontif, Ein Mevakin Oseb Yontif, you don't check it out. Lechatchila. Hu delay. Excuse me. Lechatchila hu delay. Hadiavad shaver dami. That's the case. That if it got a mum before Yontif, that's the case. You don't do lechatchila. You only do b'diavad. Case number 2, another mum b'yontif. A mum was on Yontif itself. Then Rav Shimon Aimer Ein Zeh Menucha L'Sapar Pir Dafilu Diavad Amiloi. Even if you checked it out, I don't care. It's not minamuchan, it's muksa. You can't do anything. V'hadar Tanya, what was case number 3? Vishavin, this was on the top of the Amid. Shem noilad hu mumayimai. If it and its mum were born together on Yantiv, shezeh minamuchan. So what's the chiddush of case number 3? Again, case number 1 was b'diavad, it works. Case number 2 was even b'diavad does not work. Case number 3, ta'afilu lechatchila nami. It even works lechatchila. So comes along Abaye, and Abaye says the Beitzah that we just learned is precise, proves the opinion of Rabbi Ravuna that we learned to the 3rd line, that even lechatchila you can go and check out this animal. Says the Gemara 1 second. Rav Aisha came with a mission in his hand, and Rav Aisha learned Beishanalad by Mum Erev Yantif, Beishanalad by Mum Biyantif, whether it was born on Erev Yantif or on Yantif itself, which is our case. And this Beitzah says it's not prepared. So you're telling me you can even do lechatchila? No way. We see a clear Beitzah not that way. Says Mar 1 second. But now we have a steer. We have a steer in the Beitzah. That's Adabar Uchmihi. Demishabish Vitani. He made a mistake, and the real Beitzah is like Rav Aisha learned, and therefore it's no problem. And Amar Nachman proving that which we just said. The Mishnah itself is a raya. If you can't tell there's a mum, that's the case that it's not prepared on Yontif. What does that mean that the mum is not recognizable? You can't see any mum. What's the chiddush kayach? Pshita, of course it's not prepared. You don't see a mum. You have to teach you that case. Ella, what's the case talking about? Of course, it has a mum. You see the mum, but you didn't show it to the chacham on Erev Yontif. And now on that case, imam kavua, imam aiver. Excuse me. You didn't show to the chacham whether it's a mum kavua or whether it's a mum iver, meaning whether it's a passing mum or a real mum that you can eat this bachar. Katani miyas. What do we see very clearly? Ein zeh mina muchan. We see clearly that the right Mishnah said, like Rav Shimon, that even though there was a mum, what did it say? Ein zeh mina muchan. Shema mina. So we learn, like Rav Aisha, we learned that even if there's a mum before Yantif, you're not allowed to use it even b'diavad. Says the Gemara, okay, so that was the status of the animal being born before Yontif, on Yontif, whether the expert can check it out or not. Once we're on the topic of things being prepared for Yontif, the opinion of Rav Shimon, we go into what's the classical preparation of items on Yontif and Shabbos? Muksa. Says the Gemara, Hillel Meirava. Yesh muksa l'chati Shabbos or in muksa l'chati Shabbos. A fundamental shayla. Can you have half muksa? Says the Gemara, beautiful shayla, but explain yourself, please. Hey Chidami, what's the case? If the item was fit during bin hashmasha, it's wonderful, so it's fit. It's never muksa. Meaning, what is your case of muksa on the Chati Shabbos? We know that muksa is a snapshot that happens on bin hashmashas. That basically on bin hashmashas, the twilight zone between Shkia and Shkia and Tisik Chavim, we take a snapshot of the world, and whatever is muksa, whatever not. So what's the story? If it was fit during bin hashmashas, wonderful. And if not, what is your case of muksa l'chati Shabbos? Says the Gemara, we have a case. You know what the case is? Da'achzi. It was fit when Shabbos began. And then it became unfit. And then then it became fit again. So we have this flip-flop of an item. What is the status of this thing now? So when Shabbos began, it had a usage, it lost its usage, it got a usage back, and it lost it once again. I think I said that one more time. It had a usage when Shabbos began, it lost the usage, and it got the usage again. What is the status? Is there muksa l'chatzi Shabbos? Amar Le says, Rava yesh muksa. There's muksa l'chatzi Shabbos, that the rest of Shabbos, the item will be muksa, even though it became muksa on Shabbos. So an item, again, this item Shabbos begins, and the exact case is not so clear, whether it's a case of, let's say, shivrei kelim would be perhaps one case, broken item. Again, we don't want to, the case that Rashi says is the case that figs that were dried out, that they were edible when Shabbos began. Then it says Rashi, it rained, and what happened? The figs absorbed the water, and you can't eat them anymore. Then they dried out, and they're edible. So in that case, what's the story? So again, Shabbos began, yummy figs. It rains, not yummy figs. It dries out, yummy figs. Are these figs now muksa because there was a time during Shabbos that they had no usage? Says Rava, yes, it is muksa. Eisvei asked the Gemara, 1 second, let's go from the previous Beitzah. If it's born on Yontiv itself, that it's minamuchan, it's allowed to be used. V'amai asked the Gemara, Nema hai bachar meikara, have chazi agav imei. Originally, this bachar was fit when Yontiv began through its mother, and then Yisrael itzchilei, the moment that when it was born it became unfit because it had the mum. Excuse me, because we didn't know if mum was a real mum. Achazi l'chacham and ishtarilei. And then when the chacham saw it, and the chacham said it has a real mum, it became mutter again, because of course this bachar has this middle ground type of thing. Because on one hand it's a carbon, on the other hand when it has a mum, it's not a carbon, and the kayin could eat it. So we see that this bachar is a similar entity, that originally the mother was fit for usage. That's like the figs when Shabbos begins. Then the moment of birth, this item is in a quasi twilight zone. We don't know what the item is. It's unfit for usage, like the figs after they absorb water. And then what happens? The chacham baskins, it's a mum. Now the kayin can eat it again. Now it's like the figs that they dried out. So you just taught me that the figs are muksa, but we have a Beitzah that says that this animal that's born with the mum after the chacham baskins, it's a mum. You're allowed to eat it. Contradiction. The case is that the Dayanim were sitting there right when the animal was born. So there never was a moment that the animal came muksa, because the moment it was born, they paskin that it was a mum and it was allowed to be eaten. Therefore, it's not a question on our case of muksa l'chatzi Shabbos. Another way of learning Amar Lein muksa l'chatzi Shabbos. The opposite. Rava said there's no muksa, and now we have a proof to this from our case. That this case, you're allowed to eat the bachar. V'ha meikar avichazi originally was fit. Agavime from the mother. Then it was born, it's pushed away. Achazi l'chacham, we showed to the chacham, then it's allowed. So there's a raya to that which he said that there's no muksa l'chatzi Shabbos. Now the Gemara responds, therefore there is no proof. Says the Gemara, so whether there is muksa l'chatzi Shabbos or not, at the moment we have no raya. Let's try again. Tashema, another Beitzah. You're eating grapes. You leave some grapes over. The hell of the guy can bring the grapes up to the roof. La'asas man smoking to make some wonderful raisins. Beteinim, or someone is eating figs. You leave some figs over. The hell the guy man bringing them up to the roof to make dried figs. You're not allowed to eat them unless you designate them before Shabbos. And similarly says the Beitzah, when it comes to peaches, quinces, and quinces, ubisharko, meaning berries, all other fruits. fruits. End of Beitzah. So you're eating grapes, you have some leftover grapes, you bring them to the roof to dry out. Says the Beitzah, you have to designate them for Shabbos usage. Now the Gemara analyzes the Beitzah. What's the case? If the dried fruits are fit when Shabbos begins, again, the story happened on Friday, you had leftover grapes, you brought them up to the roof. So when Shabbos begins, they're chazi, you can eat the grapes, you can eat the dried figs, then lamale. What's lamale hazmana? Why do you need hazmana? It's already fit for usage, of course, it's regular food. And if they're not fit when Shabbos begin, what does hazmana help? They're not fit, they have no usage right now. Says the Gemara, maybe you'll tell me you're not sure. You don't know whether the figs are dried, whether the grapes are dried. Avkana said, if muksa fruit dried out, and you don't know it, it's still allowed. It goes by in practicality whether it's fit or not. So don't tell me you don't know, because that's irrelevant. If it was good, good. If not, not. What must the case of this Beitzah mean? It was chazu, it was fit when Shabbos began. Then it came pushed away. It became unfit. Maybe it rained or something like we just said. And then what happens? It becomes fit again. And if you're going to tell me that there's no muksa l'chatzi Shabbos, lamali hazmana. Why do you need hazmana? From the mere fact that we said you have to designate it shows us clearly that there must be muksa. Because if there's no muksa, what are you designating it for? Elamai yesh muksa. Must be, says the Gemara in the first wide line. There is muksa. And that's what the Beitzah shows us. Says the Gemara, 1 second. Ki has been laid by Havin. And what does hazmana help you if it's muksa? Answers the Gemara, it's in a bit of a interesting level. It's somewhat useful when Shabbos begins. That what? Some people eat it, some people don't. Izmin, if you designate it, Gali Daite. Lo Izmin, Lo Gali Daite. And that's going to be the case of the Beitzah. And therefore, says the Gemara, it's nothing to do with what we're talking about, because it's not a case of muksa l'chatzi Shabbos. It's a case of grapes that are quasi-fit. Therefore, again, we don't have any raya. And the Gemara is going to continue to try to bring a raya from what people actually do. But we'll pick up from here tomorrow, continuing the sugya of muksa l'chatzi Shabbos.